This guy secretly filming under stalls in the women's bathroom in a Marshall's. This guy was secretly filming a girl at self-checkout. He filmed under a girl's skirt in Target. I've seen so many videos lately of women getting followed and filmed in stores. I get a lot of questions on what to do in these scenarios, and I wanted to play these 3 videos because I'm so proud of these women. Chef's.
Here are 50 things that have given me white fatigue, and the list could go on, but here are just 50. Karen's calling the police on black people for just existing, mass shooters being described as troubled young men, cultural appropriation without any appreciation, white people in locks talking about spirituality, all lives matter, I don't see color, white creators becoming famous for watered down versions of black culture.
White people attempting to rebrand white rage by co-opting the term black fatigue as though it's a phenomenon they actually experience but only recently found the language to talk about is both dystopianly weird and tragically on brand. The copying, the whitewashing, the centering themselves by playing victim. But what's ironically telling about it is that the concept of racial battle fatigue is not new. It's been around for decades, and the term black fatigue has been used by black people for quite a while. Mary Frances Winters wrote a book that came out in 2020 titled Black Fatigue, and it describes the mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion that black people experience because of systemic racism.
Hi there, just yelling into the void. So, part of my white fatigue is the complete unwillingness to understand white privilege and what it actually is. A lot of white people seem to think that when you tell them they have white privilege, that somehow you're telling them, well, you just had it easier, or you've never had a hard time, or you've never had down times, or you've never had to pinch pennies. Not the case. That is not what white privilege is.
There's a strange kind of exhaustion spreading across America, and honestly across much of the Western world. It's not economic burnout or pandemic fatigue. It's something quieter, more psychological. Some call it white fatigue. It's the frustration, the defensiveness, the emotional shutdown that happens when conversations about racism, privilege, and inequality come up. You've probably seen it. The moment someone says, systemic racism, and suddenly the room goes tense. Eyes roll. Someone says, can we not make everything about race? But here's the thing, white fatigue isn't new. It's just finally being named. And as more people start confronting it, even some white people themselves, the world is realizing something deeper. White fatigue is the emotional side effect of privilege being challenged. Pause. Now the question becomes, why is everyone so frustrated by it? Why are even white people fed up with white fatigue?
This white lady gets on here, right, and says that she has black fatigue. Everyone has black fatigue. I mean, these black people, they're terrible criminal thugs, right? She might as well have said the N-word. I'm not encouraging people to say the M-word, but that's basically more or less what she was saying. And then, of course, a bunch of racist white people get on this app, and they're like, yeah, black fatigue, black people suck. So insane racist. Normal people, like myself, hear that, and we're like, black fatigue would make sense if it were the complete opposite, that black people are fatigued with racist white people and the oppression and racism that they face on a daily basis, right? Like, I don't even think black fatigue makes sense in that context. Like, that just linguistic, that doesn't, I don't know. Anyway, I made a video, and so did a lot of other people. None of us communicated, but we all heard that, and we thought, well, you think you have fatigue? Imagine how black people feel. Imagine how people of color feel. Imagine how non-racist white people feel. Like, we're fucking fatigued by you guys. So a lot of us got on here, we said we have white fatigue. Come to find out, that's actually what black fatigue is originally, as it was coined by black people, that black people are fatigued by racist white people and oppression and racism. Oh my gosh, ding, ding, ding. And of course, everyone can't know everything, but that just was a reminder to me to Google. Google's my friend, and white people typically don't have original thoughts. Racist, stupid white people don't have original thoughts, and everything that they have or have ever created has been stolen pretty much consistently through history. So a reminder to myself and everyone else, the next time that a white person comes on this app and uses a term and we all have a collective experience of like, that phrase might make sense in a different context, we should Google it so that we can educate others and also try to shut it down as quickly as possible and make these people feel like the idiots that they are.
White people attempting to rebrand white rage by co-opting the term black fatigue as though it's a phenomena they actually experience but only recently found the language to talk about is both dystopianly weird and tragically on brand. The copying, the whitewashing, the centering themselves by playing victim. But what's ironically telling about it is that the concept of racial battle fatigue is not new. It's been around for decades, and the term black fatigue has been used by black people for quite a while. Mary Frances Winters wrote a book that came out in 2020 titled Black Fatigue, and it describes the mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion that black people experience because of systemic racism. Now, notice how black people didn't call that white fatigue, because the purpose is not to assign blame in order to justify bad behavior. It is called black fatigue because it is a harm that black people experience, and so their focus is on addressing and combating that harm. Whereas when white people talk about experiencing black fatigue, they are not talking about a harm that they experience because of black people or anybody else. They are literally telling on their own inability to live in society with black people. And that's not new either. That's a pathology that has existed for hundreds of years, but call it what it is, white rage.
White fatigue at its core is the mental and emotional exhaustion white people often feel when confronted with conversations about racism, white privilege, or inequality. It's the sigh when race comes up in a meeting. It's the eye roll at the mention of police brutality. It's the quiet retreat when someone points out that not everyone gets to just work hard and succeed. But let's be real, white fatigue doesn't come from oppression. It comes from being confronted with the reality of privilege. It's not the fatigue of being marginalized. It's the fatigue of being reminded that you're not. Sociologists describe it as a kind of emotional fragility. It's when privilege meets accountability, and instead of growth, it produces defensiveness. And that defensiveness can look like anger, guilt, or denial. Sometimes it's disguised as indifference. But deep down, it's a resistance to discomfort.
This guy secretly filming under stalls in the women's bathroom in a Marshall's. This guy was secretly filming a girl at self-checkout. He filmed under a girl's skirt in Target. I've seen so many videos lately of women getting followed and filmed in stores. I get a lot of questions on what to do in these scenarios, and I wanted to play these 3 videos because I'm so proud of these women. Chef's kiss.
People go in the bathroom. You cannot leave. No, you need to delete it from your phone. I want him arrested. You're not supposed to be in your bathroom. You violated our personal privacy. You're so sick for that. You know that?
You want to be recording? Look, that's all me. Weird, bro. Should have popped him in his mouth.
Excuse me, what are you doing? No, I just saw you put that underneath her dress. You have it on video. You are not going to get away with anything.
Ma'am, I'm not.
You can say ma'am all you want, but we will let them decide.
I'm not like that.
Obviously you are.
A general rule in self-defense is to be loud and make a scene, but it's also important to trust your gut. Stores are very good areas to be loud and make a scene because you're around other people, which makes it generally safer. And why they say to make a scene is because the last thing criminals want is to be caught, and making a scene brings all eyes on them. However, it is really important to trust your gut, especially if you're in a more secluded area and you fear someone might get violent. A lot of people hate on fawning, but sometimes it's the best and safest reaction to have. Fawn, which is the please and appease reaction, has gotten women out of a lot of scary situations. And that's why it is so important to trust your gut. If you are able to speak up though, please do, because it could save other women. Send a message to these guys that their actions have consequences.
When we go in there? Huh? Make sure nobody in here. Hello? See? There goes man. There goes the man. There's the man. See what I'm saying? There's the man. You know this is the women's bathroom, right? That's the women's bathroom. A man in the women's bathroom. Why you gotta go in here with your kids? Let me make sure nobody else ain't in here.
To understand white fatigue, we need to trace it back to its roots, privilege. For generations, whiteness has been the default setting in Western society. It shaped politics, education, and even the media. When you live in a system designed to center you, when your history is celebrated, your culture normalized, and your image idealized, you don't have to think about race. So when those same systems start being questioned, it feels like an attack. It's not that equality is the problem. It's that equality feels like loss to those who've always been centered. And that's what fuels white fatigue. It's not fatigue from being oppressed. It's fatigue from being asked to share space. Sociologist Robin DiAngelo calls this white fragility, but white fatigue is a quieter, more sustained version. It's the weariness that builds when someone keeps having to face uncomfortable truths, but refuses to evolve through them.
Here are 50 things that have given me white fatigue, and the list could go on, but here are just 50. Karen's calling the police on black people for just existing, mass shooters being described as troubled young men, cultural appropriation without any appreciation, white people in locks talking about spirituality, all lives matter, I don't see color, white creators becoming famous for watered down versions of black culture, profiting off of black trauma on social media, weaponizing white tears, white savior complexes in real life and movies. I have a black friend as a get out of racism free card, white teachers punishing black students for being disruptive, gentrification marked as urban revitalization, being followed in grocery stores like you don't belong, police called because someone looks suspicious, white led DEI training with no actual change, white people going viral for dances black people made. Why is it always about race with you? The obsession with controlling black hair, the criminalization of AAVE in schools and work, centering whiteness in conversations that aren't about them, singing the N-word because it's just a lyric, the legacy of colonization and pretending it's ancient history, slavery being taught as a necessary evil, internment camps being brushed over in history class, the Trail of Tears being summarized in a paragraph, mass incarceration of black and brown people, Confederate flags being called heritage, get over it was a long time ago, white people crying in HR and getting people fired, white tears when equity feels like a loss of power, denying white privilege when benefiting from it, whitewash media stories, white-run nonprofits helping black communities while not listening, demanding emotional labor while doing none themselves, wearing blackface as a joke, screaming reverse racism like it's real, appropriating AAVE, using it wrong, watching black playing like it's a Netflix genre, MLK quotes using to shame black protests, demanding calm from oppressed people while being violent, policing tone instead of hearing truth, stolen land turned into suburbs and golf courses, white men running diversity campaigns, asking can I touch your hair like it's normal, white people calling things ghetto while profiting from the aesthetic, voting for oppression and acting shocked by the results when everyone fucking told you so, posting black squares thinking that that's activism, not all white people when no one gaffs, and thinking black fatigue is about you.
You know, until today, I literally never heard the term black fatigue. And I thought about it for a while. And I thought, you know, maybe she's on to something. Maybe this woman is on to something. Because I can't even tell you how fucking sick of white people I am. Okay? White people create their own problems and then blame it on everyone else. Okay, the reason you can't buy a house, Cletus, isn't because an immigrant is taking your house. Okay, it's because you made bad financial decisions and you're a fucking moron. It's not anybody else's fault but your own. So, yeah, I've got white fatigue. As a white woman, I'm fucking sick of y'all.
Now here's where it gets interesting. Even white people are starting to call out white fatigue. They're realizing it's not just ignorance, it's avoidance. It's privilege refusing to do emotional labor. For black and brown people, it's exhausting to constantly explain the same things, to defend their reality, to watch empathy evaporate the moment accountability begins. But for some white people, the fatigue hits differently. It's the weight of unlearning, the discomfort of realizing they've benefited from a system built on inequality. The world is frustrated by white fatigue because it stalls progress. It's the reason diversity programs fail. It's why race conversations go in circles. It's why allyship sometimes feels performative. We're in an era where awareness isn't enough. People want transformation, not tired apologies or hollow statements. And white fatigue, at its worst, keeps that transformation from happening.
Hey, this message is to all the racist bigots out there who are claiming black fatigue. What's really going on is white fatigue, okay? We are sick and tired of listening to you tell stories about your Uncle Cletus McCracken. Okay, Stacy, we're sick and tired of you weaponizing your Bible, okay? Your family tree that's in the shape of a wreath, okay? Susan, we're really tired of hearing you spew gospel and Bible verses and all this other shit and turning around and delighting in the discomfort and misfortune of the people being harmed by this crime syndicate regime. Okay, we're sick and tired of you guys claiming to be patriots, but your brand of patriotism doesn't abide the Constitution. You are the antithesis of patriotic. Okay? We're sick and tired of hearing about it, John. About your black fatigue. When really what's going on is that you need to go to therapy. And you need to unpack the patriarchal, authoritarian religion that you've been indoctrinated into, and also unpack your white supremacy culture and your racism. Okay? You're a bigot and a misogynist. And we're fatigued from that. We are fatigued from hearing about the unhealed white people all over this country who aren't doing their work. And if you don't know what the work is, then you're not doing it. The work is your personal work. Your house is a fucking mess. Okay? And it needs to be exorcised like an exorcism. Because it's full of evil shit and hatred. And you're bringing down the vibe. We're fatigued from the likes of you, Stacy. That's the fatigue. Get to work. You got a lot of fucking work to do. Okay? Have a great day.
So lately there's like all this talk about black fatigue, and I watch it, and it is exhausting to watch, but nobody wants to talk about, is there a thing called white fatigue? Because there is. I'm in customer service. I'm a server. Working in the restaurant field my whole life. So, and white people are just as obnoxious and irritating, and they throw tantrums, like legit fits. And like yesterday I had an incident with a lady, and she had to be in her late 30s, early 40s, and threw a straight tantrum. I know her son and her husband had to have been uncomfortable, because I was uncomfortable for them, and I was embarrassed for them because I was embarrassed for her. Over a tater tot, like the way she acted, and I'm just sitting there like, but it's so common in the restaurant world. Yeah, everybody has good and bad in every race, but white people are just as fucking ignorant, are just as fucking, they throw legit tantrums. She was huffing and puffing, like, and her husband's like, just eat the tater tots, like the way she acted. And I'm not going to go into it. I just want to say white people are just as exhausting, and they're just as embarrassing. And for the most part, a lot of them are trailer trash, dirty, just unfit. They don't take care of themselves. They don't look like they give a fuck about how they look. They don't care about how they act. They just are shameful all the way around. Because, you know, I don't ever try to judge people on your finances or what kind of car you drive or where you live. But no matter what, how you present, you could be poor and still be clean. Cleanliness is just a matter of, just be clean. I don't care if you live in the projects, if you live in a trailer, if you live in a tent, you could still take time to take pride in how you look and present yourself. And it's always some trashy trailer park, backwoods, hillbilly white person that comes in restaurants and act like they are superior to everybody, that throws tantrums, that act like the world revolves around them. And I just sit back like thinking to myself, like, bitch, you got a lot of nerve. But it's exhausting for us too, especially in the waitress world, server world, restaurant world, customer service world, what we deal with from all people. But it's so exhausting because as a white woman, to see it's always some nasty trailer trash bitch. And I'm always like, bitch, you got a lot of motherfucking nerve to act the way you're acting. And I guarantee you ain't probably took a bath in a couple days. So it's just kind of like, make it make sense. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it ain't adding up to me. But something just don't add up. I feel like if you don't wash your ass and you don't take care of yourself and you don't present yourself at least semi-decent in public, then why the fuck is you complaining about anything, bitch? You need to be complaining about yourself. Again, I could be wrong, but make it make sense. If somebody can explain that to me, how are you missing all your teeth and you got on dirty clothes and you ain't combed your hair, but you complaining? That just, and it's so common, oh, and it's so exhausting, and it's like so hard for me to shut the fuck up and bite my tongue, but I think everybody's just dealing with bullshit.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. White fatigue is white privilege. Because only privilege allows you to tune out oppression. Only privilege lets you say, I'm tired of hearing about racism, while others live with it every day. It's the luxury of walking away from discomfort. It's the ability to choose ignorance and still be okay. White fatigue is not just emotional. It's structural. It's built into media narratives, education systems, even workplace culture. When discussions about race happen, some people can opt out. Others can't. That's privilege. And when you pair privilege with fatigue, you get denial. Denial that looks like, not all white people, or slavery was a long time ago, or I'm colorblind. But denial is not neutrality. It's participation.
Hi there, just yelling into the void. So, part of my white fatigue is the complete unwillingness to understand white privilege and what it actually is. A lot of white people seem to think that when you tell them they have white privilege, that somehow you're telling them, well, you just had it easier, or you've never had a hard time, or you've never had down times, or you've never had to pinch pennies. Not the case. That is not what white privilege is. It doesn't mean that you haven't had hard times. What it means is that you haven't had, in addition to those hard times, a judgment placed on you by society of your skin color. You don't have that. And you have been able to take advantage of certain systems that are in place that uphold white supremacy. That is what white privilege is. It's not that you didn't have a hard time. Your color wasn't giving you a hard time. It wasn't creating the issues in your life, not the color of your skin. For Black people, it's different. They have hard times, they have issues, and they also have the strike of their skin color against them, where people are judging them on that, or oppressing them based on that, or basically holding them back based on that, or incarcerating them because of that. So that is what white privilege is. It's that you didn't have that experience. For example, I used to work with this guy. He was your typical Macomb County white guy. If you know, you know. And I remember him telling me that he was a self-made man and that he didn't experience any benefits from white privilege, and that was just a bunch of bunk and it was made up. Well, he also talked about how there was programs in his neighborhood when he was growing up with the boys club and things like that, and how great they were and how they, really helped put them on a path, and had them interacting and learning how to socialize and kind of building connections. Yeah, building connections is really important. And because when you lack education, you can fall back on those connections to kind of prop you up. So that was one of the things that he talked about. And I thought, gee, I wonder if they had those programs available in minority neighborhoods. I don't think so. But another thing would be the neighborhood that he grew up in. What was the tax base like? What about his parents? What advantages were they given? Was his dad able to take advantage of the GI Bill for education? which a lot of Black men were denied. There's just so many things in place, so many systems in place that have given white people advantages that Black people didn't have. They weren't offered to them. They didn't have access to them, and that's your privilege. I hope this helps, and that's my rant. Have a good one. Bye.
But here's where things can shift. Fatigue doesn't have to mean failure. It can mean awakening. Some people are realizing that being uncomfortable is part of the process. That growth only happens when you stay in the conversation. White fatigue becomes dangerous when it leads to silence. But it becomes powerful when it pushes people to listen, to question, and to act. We're at a cultural crossroads, one where empathy must outweigh exhaustion, where accountability must replace defensiveness. Because real change doesn't come from comfort. It comes from endurance. White fatigue might be a symptom of privilege, but it doesn't have to define the future. The real challenge isn't to feel less. It's to feel more, to sit with discomfort, to listen when it's hard, to unlearn what was inherited. Because growth is exhausting, but silence is deadly. So the question I'll leave you with is this. If you're tired of hearing about racism, imagine how tired people are of living it.